to this morning's Bambuddha Boost. We're very lucky to have Debbie Haski-Leventhal with us today, who's a Professor of Management at Macquarie Business School. She's an expert on corporate social responsibility, otherwise known as CSR, responsible management education, otherwise known as RME, and volunteerism. She's published over 60 academic papers on CSR, RME, volunteering, and social entrepreneurship. And her work was covered many times in the media, including the New York Times, the Financial Review. She's the author of Strategic CSR, Tools and Theories for Responsible Management, and the up-and-coming books, The Purpose-Driven University and CSI Employee Engagement. Debbie is also a TEDx speaker and a public speaker on purpose, social responsibility, and the future of higher education. We're also very lucky to have Debbie on our advisory council for Bambuddha Group, and has been a massive mentor to me over the past few years and has really helped shape the direction that Bambuddha has gone in. So we're really lucky to have her here today. Thank you for donating your time, Debbie, and sharing all of this knowledge. I'm going to do what I do best today, and I'm going to disappear for 15 minutes, and I'm going to hand you over to the very lovely Debbie Haski-Leventhal.
Yay! Thank you so much, Anna. It's such a pleasure being here. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to do this boost this morning and talk a little bit about my story and about purpose and how we can find our personal purpose, our role purpose, and our organizational purpose, and what does it all mean and why it's all so important. So as I speak, if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to share, the chat is open. And I will try to check it after the presentation so we can have a bit of a conversation. So it's wonderful to have you all. Let me just share my screen with you. For some reason, all right, can you see my screen? Hopefully it works. So I'm, as Anna mentioned, I'm a professor at Macquarie University, and I look more specifically at corporate social responsibility, volunteering, and responsible management education. So I'm trying to focus on the positive aspects of humanity and business world as much as I can. And that started with my journey looking at volunteering, trying to focus more on positive aspects of humanity. So how did it all begin, and how did I end up here talking about purpose? So it all started when I was much younger, about 20. I left my hometown in Tel Aviv to study philosophy at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. The reason I wanted to study philosophy was because I wanted to be a writer since I was 8. I was like, I was one of these kids who knew exactly what they want to do when they grow up. I was writing stories every year, books every year since I was 8, and I was like, I'm going to be a writer. And so I went to study philosophy because a very famous author that I was working with told me that this is a great way for you to broaden your horizon and your ability to write. So I went and studied philosophy. But I was the first one to go to uni out of my extended family. And my parents couldn't really understand why it was so important for me to go to uni, and especially studying something so impractical as philosophy. So I had no support whatsoever, no emotional support, no financial support, and I had to try and survive through my first degree. And so what you see me in this photo doing in my dorms, tiny dorms room, which I shared with another girl, was that I used to take, back then not everyone had a laptop, so I used to take students' assignments that they handwritten, and I typed it into my very old computer. It didn't even have a hard drive. It had one of these big floppy disks that you inserted to have it work. And that's what I've done. So I was typing away, but that was not enough for me to make a living. So I've done other things, and I've taken on odd student jobs. But the thing that I've done next in order to survive really changed my life. So I've joined a very big tutoring project that's back in Israel called Perach. And in this project, students, university students, work with kids, usually from disadvantaged families, and they sort of volunteer with them for years. So that's twice a week, 2 hours at a time, so 4 hours a week. And you help them with work, with homework, with their social life, with whatever they are struggling with. And I really liked that kid. He was really sweet, a little bit nerdy, and he got bullied a lot. So I had to help him really develop some friends and stand up for himself. And I really felt like I was making a difference in his life. And that was the first time that I really started tasting what it means to work with purpose, that I was making a difference, that I was having an impact. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that feeling that you are changing someone's lives, even a little bit. And so I continued to volunteer for another year with another kid, and then I became the I became the coordinator of other volunteers, and then I became the vice manager of the whole project. And at the age of 24, I was in charge of 1,000 volunteers. So imagine the impact that I felt my work was making, helping 1,000 kids and their families. And that was an amazing feeling. And I wanted to do more of that. So then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to be a writer. I'm changing my dream. I'm going to work with volunteers, and I'm going to work in not-for-profit organizations that really have an impact. And so I enrolled into a master's degree of not-for-profit management at Hebrew University. And that was really fantastic. I've learned so much. And so I decided to actually continue and do a PhD in that because I really enjoyed doing that. And so you can see how this is leading to where I am today. I did a PhD on volunteering. And so for like a decade, I mainly studied volunteering. My first study was with volunteers in rape crisis center. Then I've done some studies with volunteers in at-risk youth. And you know, even recently we looked at sustaining volunteering in Australia, and we've done a lot of work around volunteering. But as I moved to Australia 12 years ago, I've decided to move more into business management. And so I thought, if we're looking at the altruistic behavior of individuals, namely volunteering, what can we learn from that about the altruistic behavior of corporations and organizations? And what helps us become more purpose-driven as people and as organization, and what is the impact of that? So that's where I started looking into corporate social responsibility, and then I also started looking at the role of business schools and what they can do in developing responsible managers and leaders, but also to be a force for good in the world. And so my new book that just came out this week, The Purpose-Driven University, is celebrating that. It's looking at how universities can become a force for good. So that's really, really exciting. So what I'm going to do today is I want to move away from my personal story to some ideas I've developed and I'm still developing around purpose. And the fourth book that I'm currently working on is looking at meaningfulness in life and at work, and how we are able to impart meaningfulness in everything that we do. And that's really, really important, especially, you know, given everything that's happening in the world. How can we become a force for good as individuals and as organizations? So when we start looking at the whole idea of purpose, I've looked at many definitions of purpose, but I really like this one. It's the basic definition of purpose. It's the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. So if we look at the purpose of, this glass of water, it's to help me drink the water because I can't just hold the water, it will slip through my hands. And so this is the purpose of this glass. It's the reason for why it was created. But why were we created, or what is the reason for us to exist as individuals and as organizations, and even as, groups and collectives and societies and communities? And that's really got me thinking about how we define our purpose. And the concept I ended up coming up with is unique impact purpose. We can even make an acronym out of this UIP. So the unique impact purpose is not doing what everyone else is doing. It's about what it makes us who we are as a person or as an organization. How do we align this uniqueness with impact? So how can we make a difference in someone else's life? How do we benefit others? How do we benefit the community? How do we benefit even the employees that work with us? How do we benefit our friends and so on? So the unique impact purpose is moving beyond what everyone is doing. So unique impact purpose, for example, cannot be that my life purpose is just to take care of my family, because this is what most people would say. A unique impact purpose for an organization cannot be just to hire people and make products and sell them, because that's every company in the world. So your purpose needs to be unique in a way that defines you as an entity, and it also needs to look at your impact. So the purpose comes from how do you benefit others. So that connects to the golden circle. Probably everyone here knows of the golden circle, Simon Sinek, start with why. And I'm not going to explain it because you probably all know it, but it really is about starting with your why and understanding why you do what you do. Again, at all levels. Why do I wake up in the morning? Why does it all matter? Why should anyone care? What do we do as an organization? Why it is important? How can we use that? How can we utilize our power and everything we know to make a difference? So instead of focusing on what we do and how we do it, we focus on the why we do it. So if I mentioned the purpose-driven university idea that I've been pushing really hard in the last couple of years, its universities are not there to just conduct research and provide students with diplomas, because it's what they do and it's what every university in the world is doing. It's about finding our unique why, our unique impact purpose that would enable us to then engage our stakeholders, all of them, in a inspirational narrative of impact. And I'll get to that again later today. So that's not my definition. That's a definition that I found in the literature, but I thought it was really crystallizing what I was trying to say, because it defines organizational purpose as an aspirational reason for being, which inspires and provides a call to action for the organization and its stakeholders to benefit the local and global society. And that's a really great definition because, one, you see how it's being aspirational and inspirational, that it works with all the stakeholders, and that it's about benefiting others. So it is about impact purpose. And in addition to this definition, I would also say it's about how we utilize who we are as an organization, what we know, what we do best. So if I'm Apple and I'm a computer company, or I'm a technology company, or I work in food and beverage, how do I utilize who I am, what I stand for as a brand, to then use that to benefit the local and global society? So I'm going to touch on three aspects of purpose. Firstly, the personal purpose. And many people come to me and says, how do I discover my purpose? I don't know what my purpose is. Even my my daughter, she's now 16. A couple of years ago, she came to me and says, Mom, how can I change the world? So how do I find that personal purpose that would help me not only create impact, but also feel fulfilled, have a sense of meaningfulness, have this desire to continue doing what I do, absolutely love what I do? So the way that I find it, the way I define it, the personal purpose is a sweet spot between what I know, what I love doing, and how I can connect these to making a difference in someone else's life. So, for example, my personal purpose, and it's really important to write down and have your personal purpose well defined, because it helps guide you. So for me personally, my purpose is to utilize my research teaching, and knowledge to create a positive impact in the world through the power of my students to do so. And so it's really utilizing my talent, what I know to, what I do best, but also what gives me joy. Because, for example, working with people, teaching, talking really gives me joy. And then how do I use that to create impact? But that could be anything. So even if it's not your job, so my personal purpose and role purpose are really aligned. But even if you can't find purpose through your job, maybe you can find it through your hobbies or your talent. So say you love photography. How can you utilize photography to be the voice of animals, suffering animals? Or if you love jogging, how can you work with, blind people to jog with them so they can go out and get the exercise that they need? So really it's about looking at who I am as a person, what I love doing, what I'm good at, and how can I tie that to benefiting others. And so similarly, there is a role purpose. So I'm looking at what I do in my job. And it's funny, when I teach, I always ask students to begin the class by telling everyone who they are. And every single time, everyone tells the role that they have in an organization and where they are in their MBA journey. Very few people really go beyond that to talk about who they are. So it seems like in today's society, our role became our identity. And so for many people, our role purpose becomes our personal purpose. But in role purpose is looking at what is my role? What do I do in this organization? Tying it again to my passion, which can be outside the organization kind of passion, and then seeing how can I do the two of them to create impact. So here is an example. There is this guy working in HR in Westpac, and he has in his role the power to connect people in Westpac, but he also has passion for refugees and human rights. And so he decides to start an organization called I'm a Boat Person to tie who he is as, in his role as HR, getting everyone in Westpac in his department to volunteer for this organization, getting Westpac grants to do that, and then working with Westpac to fine-tune the organization so it's not just about refugees in general, but now it's about financial literacy of refugees, and here is how we become more strategic around that. So very similarly, when we talk about organizational purpose, which is what I defined before, is looking at me as an organization. What am I good at? What is my unique value proposition as an organization? Am I good at logistics? Am I good at this unique product? Am I good at innovation? Am I good at being, a big organization with a lot of people, or is it about the kind of products that we sell or the services and so on? So really it's about tying the brand and our product and our value chain to the impact. And that's not random acts of charities. That's not corporate philanthropy. That is being really strategic and holistic in my organization and the why that drives my organization in a way to create impact. And that's really important because when organizations work with a strong purpose, well-defined purpose, and I'm sure you can think of many organizations that come to mind, which are mission and purpose driven, from Ben & Jerry's and The Body Shop to Patagonia to Thank You to other social enterprises and many other organizations that really are mission-driven organizations. And when you are a purpose-driven organization, you create benefits on three levels: the micro, the meso, and the macro. So on the micro level, for the people are a lot more engaged. They love working with and for this organization. They have a shared narrative of change making. They feel a strong sense of affiliation and pride with this organization. For the organization, it can then increase its brand and reputation. When people are really strongly engaged, performance is much better. And let's remember that we live in an era where about 75% of employees are either not engaged or actively disengaged. So about 20 to 25% of employees in Australia and in the US are actively disengaged. In other words, they hate their work. They hate their job. They badmouth the organization and they can't wait to get out of there. And imagine what it does to your organization when you have a critical mass of such disengaged employees. So working with a strong why could really turn that around. And I've seen organizations that moved from just doing their products and their supply chains to working with purpose. So the example that comes to mind is Konica Minolta, so the printing company. And before the last CEO came to lead it, they were just doing what they were doing through their logistics and supplying printers and so on. But when Dr. David Cook came along, they completely changed the direction of the organization. And he was all about how can we utilize our organization to fight for human rights, because in our supply chains and in our value chains, there is still modern slavery and suffering. And his vision was, what if our industry in Australia could be the first one to have slave-free organization? So that's a vision, and the whole organization is really, really engaged with that. I see some people also know David Cook and agree with that. And so he really aligned the purpose of Konica Minolta with the purpose of human rights. Unfortunately, he's just stepping down now as the managing director of Konica Minolta, but hopefully the vision that he had and the way he drove a purpose-driven organization will last beyond, because it's not about the person, it's about how do we create a legacy and an impact beyond one person. Just like Ben & Jerry's survived the acquisition by Unilever and the stepping down of Ben Cohen and Jerry Springfield. So that's my slides here, but I'd really, really love to open it up for a conversation and see if we can discuss some more. How do we define, and I'd love maybe to hear from some people if they are able to define their purpose and the purpose of their organization and how it helps them to clarify who they are and what they want to do. We can start with you, Anna.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. well, our purpose is equality, full stop. And we do that by empowering leaders to understand their sphere of influence and actually take actions to create more equality in the world, which in the long run creates environmental sustainability and wellness. And, the simplifying of the message into kindness makes it a human, trait that everybody can understand and start to learn how to put into action. But I think one of the things that we kind of come across a lot is, and I know there's people who are watching this now who are in organizations, for example, where they want to use their influence and their skills to be able to start to make that change, but they're kind of locked in a system where it almost feels impossible to be able to start the change. What would your advice be, Debbie, to those game changers, obviously that's what we like to call them, that are starting to understand and learn the influence that they could have? Where do people even start? Yeah,
well, you always start with yourself. So the change always starts with me as a person, and I need to really define what I'm upset about, what I want to change in the world. Sometimes it really is about finding your anger. So things that really upsets you and you want to, make a difference at something. But it can also be a positive vision. It doesn't have to be anger. It doesn't have to be based on a problem. It could be, this is my vision, for the future. This is what I want to achieve, and how do I use who I am and what I care about to make this change. Now, if I'm not in a position of power in the organization, it doesn't mean that I cannot influence the organization to move in a certain direction. It's of course a lot harder than if you are the CEO. But I just gave an example from Westpac, and there are many other examples. We see a new trend called social entrepreneurship. So based on the idea of social entrepreneurship, which is, starting a business to provide a social good, social entrepreneurs are working within an organization, but they see a social issue that they care about, and then they start innovating and coming up with novel ideas of what the organization can do to help address these issues. And this is one way for people to start bottom up, create coalitions of people who care about those issues, talk, speak up, talk to people in the leadership position, and try to really push your organization forward. It doesn't always work. I can tell you that for me, it didn't always work, but you can still push it with your personal purpose. And if it doesn't work and you can't get, your university to do what you want, you just write a book about it and hope other people do that as well.
It's a very good idea. So I hope everyone's writing that down out there. Write a book about it. Has anybody got any questions for Debbie, or any thoughts or comments? I know at the moment we're at a bit of a crossroads, which has been, I'm thinking of this current time as a crossroads, and we were having a good chat about this before we came on air today. And everybody's coming back into work and they're challenging the status quo right now. We're hearing it from so many leaders and so many organisations that they're like, oh my gosh, all the staff are coming back in and now they don't want to work 9 till 5. And there's a little bit of chaos going on in a positive way. How could people use this crossroads, to look at the opportunities for creating change? What would your advice be, and what's your general thoughts about the place that we're in right now?
Yeah, I think 2020 will be remembered not as the year of COVID or Black Lives Matters or bushfires. It will be remembered the year that crashed the status quo. So it was really about everything we've taken for granted and everything we presume to be the way things are. And it really changed everything. So many things, like even going out to a cafe on a Sunday morning, having brunch, something that we've taken for granted for so long was taken away from us. And being an extremely positive person, I always see the opportunities and how can we really leverage this opportunity. Yes, there is a lot of pain. There is a lot of death and sickness, and it's very, very difficult. And there is a lot of anger. But if we're not making the most out of this opportunity to really grow as a society and change the way that we do things, it's all been in vain. So if we can utilize this crashing the status quo to crashing the way things were, the huge disruptor that is 2020, to say, okay, you know what, we have an opportunity now to change the way that I had an opportunity to change when I went to uni and I thought I was going to be a writer, but then I went into a different direction, although I still write. And so this is an opportunity when things are not working the way that you want them to work. It could be such an amazing opportunity for growth. And I can just share all the stories here about my immense failures where things did not work the way that I planned. So the other reason why I did not become a writer was that I almost published my first book when I was 19. And I had a publisher that took on that book. And they promised me that they will publish it within a year. And then 3 years have passed. They were acquired by another publisher. And one day I walk into a bookshop and my book is on the shelves with another person's name on it. So I was crushed. But that was an opportunity for me to say, okay, you know what? Maybe that was not for me. Maybe there is something better for me. And then when I finished my PhD and I applied for a job at a Hebrew university, which was everything I wanted. I really, really wanted to have that job to become a lecturer at a Hebrew university, and I didn't get it. And I cried for 3 days. That was the best thing that ever happened to me, because that allowed me to come to Australia and really change the pathway that I was taking and so on. So it's about how do we face adversity the way that we are now with 2020 by trying to impart meaningfulness and purpose to this horrible crisis, horrible things that are happening, from COVID to the death of George Floyd, to how do we really try to use that as an opportunity for growth.
Amazing. Thank you, Deb. And we're running out of time a little bit today. But if you want more, which we all want more of you right now, Debbie's actually going to be one of our major keynote speakers at the Game Changers Gathering on the 15th of August, which will send you information out. We're going to rev up talking about that in the next week or so. But I think maybe the key message here, and you tell me your thoughts, Debbie, is, you know, we had a few people, we've definitely talked about that stop, start, keep over this period, like what we're going to stop doing, what we're going to start doing, what we're going to keep doing. But maybe after today, we could add the influence onto the end as well. What can we start influencing moving forward that is going to contribute to that positive change? So we've been so lucky. And I'd like to give you a personal thank you today as well, Debbie, for everything you do and continue to do to support us and me as a human being. We definitely have only got here today because of the support of people like yourself. We want to make sure everybody has a good day today. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other. We've got one more boost tomorrow, and then it's the end of the series. But don't worry if you missed anything, because they'll all be online under the Kindness Collection. And tomorrow we've got Tom Dawkins. I don't know if any of you guys came and saw Tom last year at the Game Changers Gathering. He is the founder and CEO of Start Some Good, which is one of the biggest online communities in the world for social entrepreneurs. And he's going to be giving us some advice about how to build online communities, which this isn't going away. It's going to be a blended model for a while now. So if you do want to learn some tips and advice about that, tune in at 10 o'clock tomorrow. From myself and from Debbie, lots of love, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.